Hi, this is Angela. Today's video I was inspired by a post from Sri Bhagwan, and it's called, if I want to make sure I get the wording right, when you love someone, you are actually seeking to love yourself. So I've been an aficionado of romance and love since I was quite young. And one of the questions I had from very early on was, why do we pursue desire? Why do we desire love? And one of the things that I discovered was that in order to seek love, I was looking for some sort of validation that I was special, that I was attractive, that I was a good enough girl as a child, and that I was desirable, I was wanted, and I was needed, I was important. So as adults, I sort of summarise this, that we want to feel special, or we want to feel important, or we want to feel significant. We want to get meaning, validation for who we are. But if we go to the next level of what that is, what do we look for when we're seeking love? It's not just to seek validation. There's another layer there. The ego wants to get that sense that it's acceptable, it's desirable, it's wanted. And then there's another actually more profound feeling that's going on below that. And so at the level of the ego, we're seeking validation. Below that, actually the soul, the spirit, the self, is trying to understand itself or know itself. And that's a very big understanding to start going deeper into the teaching from Sri Bhagwan. When you love someone, you are really actually seeking to love yourself. It's not just the ego looking for that. The soul and the higher self are looking to understand and know the self. So if you've ever worked with any teachings from the ancient times, you may have heard of the Delphic oracle from ancient Greece, and that had the saying above, or the interpretation of the Greek, ancient Greek, is to know yourself. So that people used to go to the Delphic oracle to not just predict the future, they went to know themselves. And a lot of our love relationships at the moment are helping us to know ourselves more and more. And we often get caught up in thinking, I'm looking for this love relationship to feel special or to give me something I want. We don't really sit in what the ancients perhaps were much more grounded in, which is that deeper pursuit to know thyself. So the other piece I would like to share is, and if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I just have to keep looking at the screen here to see if there are questions. The other thing to consider is that when you have two people in a relationship, automatically you set up this opportunity to understand and know yourself better. And I look at the two people, it's kind of like two pillars of a doorway. Without this person, there's no door. But once you have the two people here, there's actually an interchange, a dynamic, and there's a portal that you can go through because of the relationship, whether it's a parent and child, or a grandparent and child, or a spouse, or a potential dating opportunity, or a friend. Once you have that relationship, there's a portal of knowing the self that opens up. And from both the teachings of the West, which are summarized well from the Delphic oracle, to know thyself, and the teachings of the East, which is to heal thyself, the potential of any relationship, whether it's a relationship between you and a human or you and your divine, is to also heal what's unresolved in the soul and the self. So I'm just going to repeat that. The two pillars of knowing yourself and to heal yourself are set up in any relationship between any two. That can be you and your divine, you and a friend. It can be you and a spouse, or you and a child and a parent. So know thyself and heal thyself. Those two pillars are always there, and they're a special portal that whenever you become connected to one person, there's a dimension opened up, an opportunity to know yourself and heal what's unresolved. So let's go a little bit more into the healing piece, because I think we all are very comfortable from Western traditions about knowing the self, and this pursuit of, if you're interested in awakening or enlightenment, we're very comfortable with that. It's very clean, it's kind of very tidy, and it seems noble. But the healing yourself seems a bit more messy. It's like, oh, healing, there's something wrong with me. When you go into any love relationship, parent, child, spouse, your relationship to God, there's always a sense that it's not complete, right? It's imperfect, and that there can be judgment around that. If we can look at it as just not being complete, and there's an adventure of the unknown to explore, it can be quite fun. But when we look at healing, there's a lot of judgment around healing in the world. For thousands of years, some people have seen it as a wonderful thing, and some people have seen it as something painful or awkward. And I think because we've focused so much on the Western traditions, where it's about knowing the self and feeling in control in that manner. So healing, what we're going into in modern relationships now, because there is so much obvious in the media, trauma in relationships, whether it's children or love relationships, there's a lot of trauma out there that's being displayed for us very publicly. That didn't happen in previous cultures. They weren't so public with the trauma. They just did healing, right? Or some traditional cultures would heal. When there was a trauma, they would go into healing, and they had certain practices, and those practices were handed down from generation to generation. Shamans would have been a wise person, embedded or trained in that knowledge from very early on to assist tribal groups to heal when there was trauma. And healing was a certain important aspect of certain genetic and karmic relationships for families, because if families didn't take responsibility for the trauma created, they would be handing that trauma down to the next generations. So we're seeing now, if any of you've watched some of the recent news, I'm not going to refer to any famous people, but you may have seen a lot of trauma being displayed on the media about relationships with children, or misrelationships, hurt relationships with children. And we're seeing it quite clearly, but we don't seem to be comfortable with this being discussed in society. It's perhaps been aired to start this discussion about, do we make out that there's disempowered people here, or do we look at how as a culture we can heal? And there's great discussions happening about that, but a lot of hurt is being generated. So I ask you to look at, with the feelings around any potential relationship, if you're comfortable with knowing yourself and seeing yourself in the mirror of the other, that is the beginning of also beginning to heal whatever might feel uncomfortable, or, which I've discovered recently through my own experience, it's actually becoming more transparent and honest with yourself. So healing doesn't have to mean I have to expose all these vulnerable and awful things about myself. It's not only about exposure. It's actually about becoming more open to what the implications and consequences are of going deeper into your feelings. And that can seem scary when we're so used to the Western traditions of knowing the self. But healing the self, which is any opportunity in a love relationship, has a potential for healing any unresolved feelings of shame or guilt about the self, feelings of not being able to be transparent with yourself for fear of what others would think, and also just a sensitivity and compassion for yourself and your vulnerability when perhaps things from the past, your childhood, were quite painful. As an adult, we don't spend time to look at those things because we're adults and we've got to move on, right, and get on with life. But the opportunity for any love relationship is a chance outside of your busy world to start looking at those vulnerabilities of yourself as a child. And also as a parent, you will know when you have kids that they trigger some of those things that maybe you don't have a space to share. in other in your real world. Maybe you have a therapist or a dear friend or a spouse who can support you. But these moments of love that expose your vulnerabilities are really valuable moments to see where you haven't been able to be intimate with your own fears or your own need to be nurturing and kind to yourself. So the teaching of Ama Bhagwan, Sri Ama Bhagwan, when you love someone, you're actually seeking to love yourself, for me, has actually triggered a lot of profound layers to this very journey of when I'm actually in relationship with someone, what am I actually looking for? Am I just looking for them to be a companion? Am I looking for them to open up to myself? And through that portal that they provide, what else can I discover, not just about myself, but the capacity of love to create a space, a portal for two human beings to expand into who they want to be, not who they think they are, but who they desire deeply from their heart, their higher self, to be and become more of the knowledge that they've embodied and the healing that they've allowed from that knowledge. So I hope you get some stimulation from the two pillars of this portal of relationships, where we come to know ourselves and to heal ourselves through the relationship. And if there are any insights into that teaching as well that you want to explore, please pop them in the comments. When you love someone, you're actually seeking to love yourself. And also when you're looking for healing, or not looking for healing, but when you're in a relationship and you're looking at that place of healing that can come from the relationship, I would like to also invite you to share any potential relationship scenarios where you found, I can't find healing here, because in the chat I can look at those scenarios and give pointers of how to address it, how to go into the heart space, how to allow the hurt to be accepted. And forgiveness is not necessarily an option until the hurt can actually be given a space for forgiveness to happen. One of the other teachings from Sri Ama Bhagwan is that forgiveness happens. You can't force it. You can't do it from the mind. Forgiveness is a process. It can happen over lifetimes. It can happen over a second. But it happens. It's an experience that in the portal of relationships between yourself and another, or yourself and God, you can actually experience acceptance of a very difficult relationship situation or experience. So thank you for watching, and I wish you to invite that portal of possibility of knowledge of self and healing of self in your relationships. And I invite you to share any of those experiences that you might have, that you're looking for different ways to look at it from a different point of view of knowledge of the self or healing of the self. I've also got in the description today a wonderful interview discussion with Dr. Lesley Phillips, who's an author, spiritual teacher. And in that blog post, she has our discussion there. And it's an interesting discussion about how in love relationships we seek validation. And then when you go to the next level, underneath seeking validation, is this deeper desire to experience much, much more of how profound we are and how profound the opportunity of love and acceptance of each other can be. So you can also check out the podcast. And for those of you in Sydney, tonight at 7 o'clock at the Bondi School of Arts, come and join me for some beautiful movement meditation. And no experience is needed. We're just going to explore what it is to expand into the energy body and experience more of that expanded sense of yourself through the spiritual self in that physical body. So thanks for watching, and make sure you check out the links and find me on Facebook Lives every Sunday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, USA, and that'll be shifting in the Australia time, but it's about 12:30 in Australia. Thank you.